I'm about to get to you. Do you understand me, baby? Do you understand me, baby? It's real on the top. Check it. Hey, over there, my love. Hey, baby. Yeah. You looking like you need some love. All my love, baby. Yeah. And yeah, it's about to be my fault. How my fault, baby. Them juices flowing down your walls. Oh, baby. And I bet you I get you better than you ever been before. And I bet you I get you wetter, yeah, than you ever been before. That's what I do it to you. I ain't gonna stop until it she's so good. And I bet you that I get you wetter, baby. Yeah. Wet, she the wettest in the building. Man, her body catching hella feeling, really though. And I notice when you're moaning, you're like a waterfall pulling my hair. Get you down there, like you're slanging twists, girl, you're screaming, oh yeah. Don't be scared. Don't be scared, man. And I bet you I get you better than you ever been before. And I bet you I get you wetter, yeah, than you ever been before. That's what I do it to you. I ain't gonna stop until it's she's so good. And I bet you that I get you wetter, baby. Oh yeah, you better go ahead and believe it, man. Here's some theory, man. And this player JTronius, right? Street prophecies made on this EIP in the beginning. Alright. I'm so cool, you stay cool. Players around here won't have to act a fool. We'll stay cool, you stay cool. Do your own thing, but play by the rules. Come on. This one's for brothers with lost fathers, caught up in the acting and they dip, said why bother? And this one's for sisters that hurt mothers, calling niggas daddies undercovers with no rubbers. Cool, you stay cool. Players around here won't have to act a fool. We'll stay cool, you stay cool. Do your own thing, but play by the rules. OG code, on off the road. Game around here is sold and not told. So be cool, that's why I'm so cool. And this one's for players that's cold-blooded, jacking cribs and drugs ain't they own cause there's flooding. And this one's for vixens with no pension, sucking for some bucks, then they stuck with blood visions. Ain't cool, we've been used, dealt a dirty hand and acted like stacks from girls' orals. And this one's for crackers that straight jacking. Castles made of fear about to fall by their actions. Cool, we've been used. Dealt a dirty hand and acting like fools. Shit ain't cool, we ain't cool. Gotta flip the script and make our own rules. Not that third row, get a rebel. Don't come around here till shit is stable. It's not cool. Hell no, hell no. It's really not cool. Hell no, and this one's for preachers that straight acting. Pockets overflow while they church is straight slacking. And this one's for seekers with no teachers. Caught up in the game and a trap that's so see-through. Not cool, misled too. Hustlers around me, that ain't what we choose. It ain't cool. Shit ain't cool. Last. Now this is for children on foundations. All up in the screen, slanging mess and hood glitching. And this one's for suckers, that's my legend. Rebels on the rise, about to fight for good living. Misled too. Hustlers around me, that ain't what we choose. It ain't cool. Shit ain't cool. Yeah. Oh no. Things ain't cool. Things ain't cool.
Prestige Media Group.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome to the Rocky Road Show, a show that uplifts and supports independent music artists and the people who support those independent music artists. I am your host, Rocky Rocket, and I am here with none other than my friend Joshua JTronius Taylor.
Woo, 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 woo. What's up?
Hey.
What's good, Rock? Hey, what's good, Rockzilla?
Hey, yes. So, JTronius, man, we've been down a long road together through the time that we met. I'd like to tell y'all really quick a quick story about how I met JTronius as an independent artist. He was performing at the Budweiser factory here in Houston, Texas. And he was performing at a show by Miss Cat. And I looked at the stage and I'm like, oh my God, like this dude is on fire. And I couldn't believe it. He was just so good. He had amazing stage presence. And so he was sitting down and I was with ESG. And we were all over there. And I'm like, oh my God, you were so good. And I went on and on. But he had just come off the stage and he was like, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But I just knew that our paths at the time, I just knew our paths were aligned. And we're going to continue to align in some type of way, shape, or form. So with that said, JTronius, welcome to the show, bro. Welcome. Thank you. It is an honor to ever have you in my circle and in my presence, brother. And man, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And more importantly, happy birthday, Miss Cat. The woman that brought us together today is her birthday. So happy birthday, Miss Cat, to you. Turn up, turn up, turn up, and celebrate your life. That's number one. And I am, as you said, Joshua Taylor, aka JTronius. I am, or they also know me as the governor of the galaxy, the new age funketeer, my dear. And I am originally from Sherman, Texas, you know, and that's where I currently am right now, North Texas. And I've been doing music, I've been in the music and film industry all together now, damn near all my life, but like professionally, I would say, you know, almost 20 years I've been in this game. And, you know, I sing, play piano, act, develop other artists, songwrite. I promote art. I love art of all forms, and I am here to advocate art of all sorts. You know, that's the brief. That's the brief breakdown. But yeah,
Mm,
20,
man. So,
2020.
Jay Tronius, tell me a little bit about. I'm sorry, connection issue, of course. Where it's hard freezing everywhere. Uh, so tell me a little bit about how it was growing up for you and where your musical influences came from and inspirations.
Well, you know, like I said, I started here in the 903 in Grayson County, Sherman, Texas. Um, my father was a singer. My mother played the flute, and so you know, I was in a house that loved music. And you know, to him to go even further, like you know, in my father's side of the family, you know, everybody's in the church. You know, my dad was a gospel and an opera singer. So, you know, I had that background all the way from him, always singing places since I was a kid, singing a lot in church, singing at weddings and funerals. And he used to bring me with him a lot. And then, you know, Mama just had the ill record collection. She wasn't playing flute by the time I was born, but she had her flute here, and she just had the, you know, she just loves music. So you know, I got to see performance and got to listen to it, you know, heavily, and I grew up in that. And even with my father's family, everybody's in the church, everybody sings. Even my grandfather, we go back to the roots of this stuff. My grandfather used to work on the railroad back in the day, and every time we'd have like family get-togethers, you know, they used to sing while they were working on the literally working on the railroad. So it's like, you know, he used to do like real like Negro spiritual type stuff, like old school root, like you know, like one generation away from the slaves, how they used to sing their Negro spirituals while they were working. So I've got, you know, I've got an interesting past when it comes to the music, and I kind of took it on my own after a while, and was just big, you know, in our era. You know, I was just big into watching BET all the time, MTV, always, you know, buying record anywhere. I started from vinyl to cassette to CD and all the way up to this digital world. Like, I just, you know, if I had a choice, if you put a TV and a radio in the room, I always was gonna choose the radio. You know, and it's still to like this day. Like, ain't no TV on right now. You know, I am music. I love it, and I just kept going, man. That's where the start of it. And then eventually, after, you know, I started singing in front of people a lot, like starting probably like around, I was like 13, 14 years old. I did like little shows as a little kid, but when I really knew I wanted to do it, I had to have been like 13, 14 years old, sang in front of my whole junior high school. Shouts out to Piner Middle School. And when I did that, sung in front of the whole junior high, and they lost their minds, I knew it was something I needed to do the rest of my life. So I've been pushing. I've kept going. I hadn't stopped since. I don't plan on it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, so you were surrounded by music at a very early age.
Very early, yeah.
A very early age. Mm.
Yeah.
So, what was your moment of where you felt um like this could be it? This could be my moment. This could be where things really get going and jumping off for me. Have you had that? For one, sometimes I ask that question like, I haven't had that moment yet. But have you had that moment? And if so, what was it?
Well, like I said, like as far as like knowing that I wanted to sing and do music the rest of my life was that middle school thing where I sang in front of the junior high. Everybody treated me different that day. My whole life changed. So I knew I needed to do it then. But then when the dream was like, I got to make it big, quote, big, the people in the world need to know me, is when I went to Boston. I went to college, to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And that first semester I went there, I signed up for the gospel choir, and it just so happened, not even a month or two into me being in the gospel choir, LL Cool J's people, his business team, came to scout us out. And out of the whole choir, they picked about 5 or 6 of us to actually go to the Monster Jam that year and sing background for LL on this song he had at the time called Father. And I knew then that was the universe talking to me, because I grew up listening to LL. He was one of my favorite rappers as a kid. And not only that, the subject matter, because my parents split up when I was young. And so from 8 on, I was always told I was the man of the house. So to not only meet one of my favorite artists of all time, but to also sing a song that I could also relate to with him, that's when I know. I was like, oh, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. Once I got on stage,
Mm,
we sang in front of all those people, and that feeling, and just like I was among people I was watching on TV. It felt like a movie, and I was like, well, I guess I'm on the right path. I need to keep on trucking. And I've had marvelous moments ever since, still till now.
wow. Mm. So
Aaliyah,
then now that yeah, I was going to say that. So now that we're throwing out names, tell me a little bit about Aaliyah and how that happened.
well, the Aaliyah was also performing that day where LL was performing. I believe back then it was called the Fleet. It's where all the basketball players and the hockey play. The Celtics and the Bruins play. But I forget what it was named at that particular time. But there was a monster jam. So it wasn't just LL on the bill. It was LL. It was Aaliyah. It was LSG. Rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? Gerald Levert. It was Genuine. It was Buster. It was Blackstreet. Shaggy. Man, Uncle Sam, this dude named Uncle Sam, and people remember who he is. He's Wanye's cousin from Boys to Men. Like all these people were on the lineup. And at that point in time, Aaliyah, if you were a deep Aaliyah fan, there for a while Aaliyah wore sunglasses all the time. And at some point in time, they used to say she had a lazy eye or something. There was a reason why. Either she always had a bang over one of her eyes, or she always had sunglasses on. And at this point in time in her career, she stopped doing that. So I was so used to seeing her with these glasses on TV. And my roommate, everybody knew at that time I had a big ass crush on Aaliyah. They all knew it. I had no problem telling it was Aaliyah Mariah. And I just remember we're backstage, just waiting for our turn to perform or whatever. And I literally walk right by her, right? Like I walk right by, and my roommate was singing with me too. And he tapped me, he's like, Jay, how you just gonna walk right by her? That's your girlfriend. And I'm thrown off. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, that's your girl. That's your girl. And I turn back around, and it's Aaliyah, and I just get stuck. It's rare. If you know me, like, I'm not scared to talk to nobody, no matter what quote their title or their stat. I'll go right up to you, because we're all human. That's my mentality. But there's every now and again, there's some people that just that get me lost for words. And she, even now, I can feel it now. Like I just remember looking at her, and then I built the courage to go talk to her. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And she was cool, man. Like she was just smooth as hell, just cool and just beautiful beyond. It's just beautiful woman. Like, and she, I was like, man, it's an honor to meet you. Just small talk. And she with some of these celebrities, you don't know what their personality is like till you meet them, But she happened to be all of that. She was one of those situations where it's like, not only am I a huge fan, not only do I got a crush on you, you're also cool, and that doesn't help the situation at all because you just too cool and too fun. I don't know what to do with you, and I bug her too much. She messed around and we took a picture, and this was before cell phones, so I'm upset because I can't find this picture. I can't find this picture. At the time, I was a big fan of Rodman and Cisco at the time of Drew Hill, and so I had this blonde afro at the time. So there's a physical picture somewhere with me and Aaliyah, with me with this bright ass yellow jacket on, these bright ass yellow hair, and her just, yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. That could have been a moment. That could have been a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
That whole situation was a moment, just sitting there, because it's not like I'm just there as a fan. I am a fan, but it was me being there because we're all performing at the same show. So it's it was a way different. It wasn't like I just want to meet Aaliyah. It's like, no, I'm performing with Aaliyah tonight. Me and Aaliyah doing it. We're both in the Monster Jam tonight. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, so then from there, you said what year was that?
That was 97.
97.
Yeah.
Okay. So from there, I can imagine that you'd be getting a lot of like offers, hey, I could do this for you, I could do that for you.
Definitely.
A lot of that. So tell me a little bit about what happened after all of that was over with all of the things that you were getting approached with.
Well, it was always like the next move was there, as I always was into groups, right? So I would be doing groups. Thank you, partner. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I'd always be
Oh,
in group.
good.
I auditioned to be in this group with management, right? And I made the group, and we started rehearsing and doing all this stuff. And we had a plan. We had plans, like a whole itinerary at the time. So I was in a group that I think we called it the Fifth Element or something like that. And we had two managers, and it's crazy because we started practicing and doing all that. And then a friend of mine at the time was a lead singer of this funk group at the college, and they were going on tour in Canada that next summer. And he ended up getting his girlfriend pregnant. So as I'm in this group and I'm doing this group thing, he approaches me and was like, "Yo, Jay, I was gonna go on tour, but and this is a dude that was in the gospel industry, tough. He had amazing voice, and he'd been in the game for a while. And he was like, basically, man, I want you to sub for me. I want you to substitute as the lead singer for this funk group that's gonna tour in British Columbia and Alberta. And it's the first time I'd ever been offered a tour, and I was like, huh. So I was conflicted. Do I want to stay here and work with this group, or do I want to go do on this tour? As I was going between the two, something in me was just like, man, go on that tour. So I had to, figure out what to do as far as like, hey, y'all, I know I'm in this group, but I just got offered to go on this tour. I'd like to do this, and can I possibly come back to the group? They was like, I'm sure we can work something out. We still got to do what we got to do. And in the midst of that, what ended up happening as I went on tour, the dude that they got to replace me, there was two guys that they put in. There was three of us in the group. And then when I went to go on tour, they added two dudes. One guy's name was Lee Wilson, and the other dude's name was Ryan Leslie. So I don't know if you've heard of Ryan Leslie.
I've heard of Ryan Leslie, yeah.
So Ryan Leslie was my sub for my R&B group when I went on my first tour.
Wow.
Right. And Ryan at the time, if you know Ryan's history, Ryan was living in Boston at the same time I was in Boston going to Berkeley. He had just graduated from Harvard, and Ryan was 16 years old when he graduated from Harvard. He was a brilliant dude. So he was already out of school while we were just starting. He already had like a full-time job, and but he was still pursuing his music then. He knew back then what he wanted to do. That dude was so sharp, and it's crazy. So I go on my tour, I come back, and then somehow, like even outside of that group ended up falling apart, right? So then when that group fell apart, here came a dude, a mutual friend of mine, of me and Ryan, this drummer that was playing for Ryan, doing shows with Ryan around the city, introduces us. And then that's the first independent label situation I get into, is with Ryan Leslie, called Next Selection. Ryan, like people had heard about it later when he got with Diddy and all of them, but like Ryan had set that up. Ryan had a team of people already older than us, making all of them making six figures. We're having meetings in the Harvard Club at 18, 19 years old, with Ryan being the CEO of Next Selection, and he's going to be one of the forefront uh, CEOs that uses this new thing called the internet to get us popping. So that,
Yeah.
so I started working with Ryan for a few years, and then the story goes on, man. My story's crazy, but yeah, that's part of it. But people coming at me with tours, management, join this, join that. It happened so fast the moment I got up there. It was crazy.
Mm. So then tell me, um, of course, with that being like one of the, of course, that might not have been your personal high, but one of those moments where everyone was probably like, oh yeah, this is it. You about to be rich. Um, Tell me a little bit about what happened after that, after all of the buzz, all of that kind of started dying down a little bit.
I think from there, shit went up. Excuse my friends, I don't know if I'm supposed to be cussing on
Yeah.
here, but
No, you
like,
good.
so that was a pivotal moment. But what got crazy is Ryan and I had a difference, just a difference of we weren't always on the same terms. Like I knew that brother was gonna blow up. Everybody, since I came to Boston, everybody was always like, "You got this star quality, blah 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 blah," and your time's coming, your time's coming. And so Ryan and I parted ways, and then I messed around and got into this group called the Three Kings. And the Three Kings was like a hip hop world music reggae group, and that actually was when it was at an all-time high, because when we all decided to get together, it all just kind of came together. Like there was just something about all of us as a team. We're all on the same page. The message and the music was the same. And then all of a sudden, all these people were interested in us. We did our first show on a Sunday night in Boston and packed that place. And people were just going crazy over this group. And it got real big real quick. And all of a sudden, like, we got a booking agent and a PR company behind us, and we're in the newspapers. And then basically every artist you can think of in that wave at that time, in the early 2000s, we were opening for Pharrell. Like I was having conversations with Pharrell. We were opening for Busta. We go rub elbows with Black Eyed Peas right when they added the white girl, when they added Fergie. We opened for Damian Marley, like the Roots. We were in the mix with these people, and we just knew that it was gonna go like that wave. When all them, they had came out around that same time. That whole wave of neo soul and Pharrell and all of them, the Nerd and all of them, and then as you see right now, they just skyrocketed, and we were right in the mix of all that. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 years deep into that, and we were still getting calls and still getting big opportunities. Just the groups get crazy, and all of a sudden everybody's egos, because of the money and just all these different things are going on. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, right when we're at our peak, it just falls apart. It just falls apart, you know. And it's like I end up, having my daughter. No regrets. I love my daughter, but that was at that time where everything was falling apart, you know. And yeah, it got real dark there for a second because we were on a high. It's like we were on this high, and then it's like it just dropped because we all couldn't get on the same page. So I had to
Mm,
rebuild and bounce back. You know, I had to go back to the drawing board. It was crazy.
mm.
But the
So,
cool thing about it is that you could never take that away. Like those moves in itself made me one of the well-known artists in Boston. And the thing about Boston versus New York, because New York's like 4 hours away, like Boston has a great music scene, but most artists in Boston, as you find out later on, not until recent times, but at that time, Boston artists were going to New York to get the record deals, you know, and if they weren't going to New York, they were going overseas because overseas was always booking tours for all the bigger like hip hop legends like your Ed OGs and the Acrobatics, Terminology, Rex, all those cats. Because when you think about like New Edition and you think about New Kids on the Block, they all went to LA. So Boston was an interesting area where you could get it popping, but you were going to need to go somewhere else at that point after you conquered Boston. And I kind of plateaued there and was trying for years to figure out how to get over that plateau. So yeah, it was
mm.
it was interesting. It was interesting, and eventually I came to Texas.
Yeah, so tell me about your transition from Boston to Texas. I know that you're from Sherman, so Boston was kind of just a stop along the way for college purposes, education, and also more opportunities. But how did you come back to Texas? What helped you make that decision?
I had got off of my path. You know, I started getting into things. I started getting into because things kind of went the way they went, and the job markets were getting crazy. I caught my ass being more in the streets than in my music and in my acting and whatnot. And I made a few moves, and I kind of hit rock bottom, and because I wasn't catching that break that I wanted, or I wasn't pursuing it correctly. Why don't I say that? Let me switch it. I
Yeah.
wasn't doing it correctly. And so things kind of hit the fan, and I was like, I need to hit a restart button because I just felt my candle burning at both ends. I just mentally, I just was out of it and I was drained. And I could have been comfortable, like, because in Boston, they treat your boy like a king. Like, they lay out, shouts out to all my people in Boston. They show me dumb love. I can, from the studios to the videos to everything. It's just that, but I had already conquered. I had played every like hole in the wall up to the biggest venue there. So I was like, it has to be more than this. I just can't keep recycling this. This is not enough for me. And I'm just not. And then I need to get back to getting with myself at that time. And it was like I wasn't in a bad situation. I was in a bad place mentally. So I was like, I think it's time to come home. And at the time, it wasn't about me. I'm about to come down to Texas and take over Texas and do this. Like, no, I'm just going to come home and get my mind right. Fall back in love with myself, like get comfortable. Because one thing you notice with a lot of artists, no matter what level they're on, whether they're, on their independent, starting all the way to the big, you hear a lot of artists saying they're lonely because you can know all these people in the world can know you, but when the lights go off and everything, a lot of that times because you're known by so many people, you got to be in solitude, and that solitude
Mm,
can drive a lot of that solitude has drove a lot of people crazy. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of artists to this game behind what this game comes with. So I knew that I was like, go get right, man. Go get right. So I'm sitting in that airport about to head back to Texas. I finally just said, I'm leaving. It wasn't like I was in a bad situation. I had an apartment right next to the ocean. I had all the access to whatever I needed, but I just wasn't. It just didn't feel right anymore. I remember sitting in that airport, and it was like I heard this voice because I'm spiritual. I'm very spiritual, and there was this voice that was like, "Go home and step to your throne." I didn't know what that encountered. I didn't know what the hell Sherman, Texas had anything to do with whatever. But that voice, and I felt like at that moment I was sitting in that airport, I felt like a lot of weight lifted off my shoulders that I had for years. After that peak, coming down off of that peak, like something else is about to happen. I need to take this leap of faith and go with God. And that's how I ended up in Texas.
Mm, wow. So let's talk about how Texas has been to you since your return.
You know what? It's been unexpected, and it's been exciting. It's been insightful. Um, Coming to Texas, I accomplished what I've wanted to accomplish. Get back to my inner happiness and being okay with being by myself at times. And I got those things accomplished, and I got to spend a lot of quality time with my family on all the personal end. Career wise, I was open. The first thing everybody kept telling me when I came back to Texas was like, Houston, 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 Houston. Like if you get Houston, if Houston's got your back, the rest is history. Houston, Houston, Houston. I was like, okay. And I never really had, like, I've been to Houston before, but I had never pursued my entertainment career in Houston. And it was weird how it happened. Like my cousin here, shouts out to Young Yeezy, aka Yeezy on the Track. He's like a diehard. He's a producer out here, and he's a diehard Houston dude. Like he loves the Houston music scene and the history, and like his sound is so influenced by Houston. So he pulls up this Sons of Funk, this Master P, and he loved Master P. And he pulled up this Master P record from that one R&B group he had, and they had that song called "Pushing Inside of You." And
I love that song.
he was like, "A record for you like this, and Houston is gonna love you, right?" So he goes and makes up a beat kind of similar to it, kind of in the same vein. He was like, "Jay, do this record." And it's funny because at the time, I wasn't really into, like, I had been doing all that smooth R&B thing. I'm gonna make love to you. I'm gonna do you right, girl. I've been doing that for a long time. And I was really more like in a militant, like I was, because especially with Getting with Three Kings, I was more like on my Bob Marley, my Dead Prayers. I was wanting to talk about police brutality and like there's all these different issues. And like in the music, I wanted to switch up. But he was like, no, come back and do this smooth record. I was fighting him. And then eventually we went down to this recording studio in Dallas called The Kitchen. And I messed around and laid this record down called Slide. And everybody was like, oh man, this is nice. This is real nice. We shot a video for it and everything. Here comes Miss Cat. Miss Cat sees Slide. And then at that point in time, she was just starting to throw events in the Houston area. And she was so clever with it, right? She was like, she hits me up out of the blue, a Houston native, and she was like, yeah, I'm throwing this big event at the Ava Center, and I'm gonna invite H-Town. Shouts out to R&B group H-Town, and a lot of radio people in the radio. And the way that she would freak it, right? She would get a couple of artists to do an artist showcase, but also on the flip side, she would make it an award ceremony. So this was how she would get all the Houston celebrities of the Houston entertainment to come in, and she would literally buy the trophies herself, the awards or whatever, and that way they would come, and that way they would see us perform, and now we're all in there. And it was brilliant the way she freaked it. She was like, I'm gonna bring them and give them awards, so they're gonna be. And I remember that's with J-Dog, and that was funny, man. Is coming back to Texas, I pretty much missed the whole Houston thing, with the Slim Thug, the Swisher House, and the SUC and Zero, all that. Like I missed that whole thing because I was on the East Coast, so I didn't know much about it. They were like, yeah, J-Dog's gonna be here, and for the next few years, everybody's like, yeah, J-Dog, ESG, blah 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 blah. I'm like, who? And I'd have to go and Google all that, but I was constantly coming to Houston And Kat decided to be my manager there for a while. And as you know, that's how we met. So this was a whole new chapter I didn't even have in my head. Houston, y'all were just showing dumb love. Kat was doing so much for me, man. She was getting me out there. She was introducing me to a lot of people out there. Uh, you know, she also was into film, so she started doing her film thing and putting me in the movie theaters. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. Because in my mind, when I went back to Texas, it wasn't about me. Like I said, it wasn't about me coming back to Texas and taking over Texas. It was about me being like, okay, I'm here and I need to figure out where I need to be next.
Right.
So I went to this mentality where I was like, I'm a free agent. May the best place win, and that's where I'll go. And Houston just made me was like, well, maybe I need to stay in Texas because Houston, I kept going down there. I kept going down there. Y'all even work, you know, been linking up with y'all with the Trib Republic, and more and more things kept happening. And you know, when I would go to LA, I would go back up to Boston, I would go visit New York. I was visiting all these places, and it narrowed down to two cities. Houston was on the map as far as showing me love instantly. And then this other thing happened where my daughter's godfather moved to London from New York, told me to get on this app that this dude he just met out in London was like, you need to get on this app right now. Nobody's from the US is on here. Nobody's like you. Get on this app right now. Literally in my house where I'm at right now, I go do my first video in the backyard at nighttime. And so I don't wake nobody up. Did that video. They started going crazy. Shot my next video in this living room where I'm at right now. And it was this app where you could do a video and you could sing to a beat and edit it. And then that second one, just, you know, they were going crazy. All the people on the app were going crazy. Then I get this email from this dude named Maverick Quest from Manchester, England. And he's like, who are you? What are you doing? And we need to make an album. So here we go. Now we're getting into England. So now Houston and England's hitting me up constantly. So yeah, man, you know, fast forward, here I am, you know, still to this day coming down to Houston, still politicking with my Houston people. And that whole thing with Maverick turned into a whole record deal in London. So, oh, my bad.
Man.
Yeah, so yeah, the Texas chapter has done me good. There's still an uphill battle. There's still an uphill battle, especially primarily due to good old COVID.
Of
But
course.
you know, like it's been it. But you know, between all things happening in Houston and London, man, like yeah, this chapter, I had no expectations, but I love where it's taking me and where I'm about to go with it.
Right.
And the world's
Right.
headed
So,
now.
so let's talk about where you're going with it. So what of course I would normally ask what does the next 5 years hold for you because you know that's a typical journalist interviewist type of phrase question, but I think through your story today, through hearing what you've been through, um, you're a living testament to whatever God wants from me, whatever the universe wants me to do, wherever I wind up is where I'm gonna wind up. I'm just gonna listen. But what is in the works for JTronius?
Well, as of right now, like this, the interesting is what everything like the recent things that are going on is that I am signed to an album deal with BBE Music. Shouts out to Peter Darkwa and the team over there in London, and Maverick. Me and Maverick together are Sons of the Sun. We've dropped our first single back in September called Underwater Dreaming. It got some nice little traction, and this year is all about dropping. We got a couple remixes. This is interesting because this is where the worlds collide. Because I can say this, I just went to Houston recently, and I was down there for a while, and I got the legendary producers, the duo Beans and Cornbread, to do
Wow.
a remix for Underwater Dreaming.
Mm,
And I can't rest.
beautiful.
I can tell you off this. There's some things I can't say on this interview, but I'll tell you later. but that got really interesting. So Houston and London's worlds have collided. So there's gonna be a couple remixes coming out for Underwater Dreaming. We're gonna drop a couple more singles. I know them, but I can't say them right now. And then the full album. We have a full album coming out. So hopefully, the main thing is this COVID thing dies down for us and for all other artists from small to big, so we can actually tour and promote this album. You know, that's been the holdback, is that, you know, we literally had been booked, like I was supposed to be in London and throughout Europe last summer, but it got canceled. So it's about trying to be patient. I've had to learn since then what I can do to keep my mind occupied and not think about it too much, because it's crazy to know that you've got something that you've wanted your whole career, but you can't really act on it because there's a whole pandemic in this world. So it's kind of crazy.
A whole pandemic. It's a whole pandemic.
I call it the plandemic, but you know,
The plandemic, you know, it is what it is.
But it's here and you got to work around it. So my solution to it, you know, because I was in a slump between the tour getting canceled, a couple deaths in the family, like I had to just reset my brain on how to be positive about everything. And so my answer to it was get back in the lab, go make more and more music, you know, just go create, keep creating. And that's what I've done. I've been back in the studio a lot for the past couple months. In Houston, I'll be down there on the 28th. Me and this girl named Taz Stansberry, we teamed up, and she's an author now, and she writes children's books, and she's doing this romance novel called Deeper, and she decided to do it in, you know, hard copy and audio book. So she's doing it chapter by chapter, and I am narrating on the audio book as one of the main characters named Dominic. So the first chapter has been put out there, and she's doing it real neat. She's adding music into it. So there's not only an audio book, but there's also a soundtrack. And I co-wrote and sang on basically the song called Deeper Love, which is the theme song for the whole book. So I've been working on this audio book with her and the soundtrack end of it with her. And man, I'm just doing records. I just got back up with Gutter. Gutter and I have been in the studio. We've been in the studio and we've been talking. Shouts out to Gutter. You know,
man. Shout out to Gutter. Gutter, y'all.
He's doing his thing. You know, the key thing, I think, no matter what level you're on in this, you know, like I think the two main things that are important is consistency and mental clarity. Because as you see, there's a lot of crazy stuff, you know, just in this entertainment industry, period. Like you see a lot of artists really losing their shit. So my thing is about finding your happy place, finding your pace, no matter what level you're on. Just go back to the root of keep the root of why you're doing this is because you enjoy doing it. My thing, I tell people, whether I had got a deal or I'd have been independent, like, you know, because the thing is I'm not exclusive, so I still have the mindset of an independent artist outside of this project, because I'm still putting out JTronius records. I'm still doing features for other artists that I work with, you know, like, so I'm wearing two different hats. There's one where I deal with the label, then there's one for me as JTronius as the independent artist. So, you know, and my thing is I'm going to do that forever. I'm going to do that till it's time for me to go. Because I keep it that I enjoy doing it. Even with all the bullshit that comes along of you trying to get the money, the fame, whatever it is that you're trying to chase behind it, you always got to remember you're doing it because you enjoy doing it. You know?
Yo, I love that. I love that. Do it because you love doing it.
Yeah.
Do it because you love doing it. A word from Pastor JTronius Taylor. Y'all.
Chad.
Yo, yes. And with that said, I believe that that's our time for today. Thank you so much, JTronius, for coming through and blessing me with your presence and also your friendship, brother. Ongoing all the time. And also, y'all, don't forget to download, you know what I'm going to say, crowded streaming. It's FUBU. If you know what FUBU means, it's FUBU. Support us this Black History Month, y'all. Support each other this Black History Month, y'all. Crowded streaming pays for your streams. They're not going to take advantage of you. And they will take care of you. Ask for an interview. They'll hook you up. And also, with that said, a special announcement, we are now on Roku, guys. So on Roku, you can go to Grind City Media. I believe it's .tv, y'all, but go check them out on Instagram at Grind City Media. The link is in their bio. We are on Saturdays at 7:30, but that's Eastern Standard Time. But watch Rocky Road, crowded streaming, and all of the other shows on Grind City Media, y'all. And thank you so much for continuing to support the Rocky Road. Thank you, JTronius, for stopping through the Rocky Road, and much blessings on your journey, brother.
Hey, we in this thing together. Let's keep climbing. Let's keep evolving, man. Thank you for the interview.
Yo, have a great one.
You too, mama.
Girl, hop right on in. Let's go for a ride. Puff on this. We're bound to take flight. No inhibitions. We're cruising tonight. Girl, all night. Yeah, yeah. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Girl, come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Girl, come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Girl, come on. We're bound to smash out. Make sure that door's closed. Bound to strap up. So girl, take off your clothes. Cloudy in here and the windows is rose. Girl, let's go. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Girl, come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. Girl, come on. Space Cadillac in my Cali ride. start this car up yet. And I swear we was moving.